I first became involved with the idea and notion of Swan Lake in 1995 with Matthew Bourne.
My initial reaction when Matt told me he wanted male swans was, is he mad? I thought it was a very bold move to have male swans. Having already seen what he'd done with Nutcracker and Highland Fling, I knew that he was a very clever man and whatever he put his mind to would work.
It was something that hadn't occurred to me. I was originally thinking already of doing Swan Lake. I was thinking of casting dancers that I'd been working with at that point. And suddenly this idea came up that someone like Adam, almost like a creature from another world to us at the time, who was a rising star at the Royal Ballet. He'd recently been promoted to principal, but very recently. The fact that he sort of seemed interested in doing something seemed sort of a perfect timing to bring in this different kind of dancer to our world, and it's kind of worked for the piece.
And when the idea was first broached by Matthew, I remember thinking, oh, my goodness, are we allowed to do that? I mean, can we actually do that?
From a classical ballet point of view, which is my background, you know, whenever you think of swans, you think of these elegant, beautiful creatures, soft, but actually in reality, they're actually quite ferocious, wild animals. And I thought that by casting males in the roles of the swans, we could bring that side of swans into the story.
Not that you can't do that with women, but at that point it felt like it was a really good road to go down.
Yeah, well, I remember when we did some workshop weeks on it before we actually started the rehearsals proper, just to start getting some swan movement going. And part of that process was watching videos of swans. They're not the most elegant creatures, especially when they're taking off and landing. They're quite gangly and ungainly, and so to try and find a way to represent that in a kind of aesthetically pleasing way wasn't always easy.
We started choreographing together, really, even in our first photo shoot, which we did before we'd created any choreography. We had to come up with some photos, and so a lot of the things that went into the photography with Hugo Glendinning were things we made up in the studio that then went into the show. It's an odd way around to do it, but that's sort of what happened. We had to come up with something. And Adam was I think very significant in the creation of this piece, not just because his performance was wonderful and people loved him in it and he had an enormous impact personally in it, but I think he brought something to us at the time. I mean, we've been known to be quite a quirky, funny company. You know, we had our moments of more moving material in our pieces, but I think basically we were known as a quirky company that had a reputation for humour. I think Adam brought a seriousness to us and made me, in particular, want to make this piece meaningful. My
influences were very much the people that we had in the room at the time, who were coming up with the material. So Scott Ambler, Etta Murfitt, David Hughes and myself came up with a lot of the material, and we were, at the time, we didn't know what we were creating. You know, we didn't realise we were creating an iconic thing or iconic moves. We were just trying to be truthful to the swan that we wanted to project in this piece.
I mean, I can tell you one story. We're creating many of the sequences in Act 1. Well, the swan isn't in Act 1. Or the stranger, and we hadn't done Act 4 yet. So I said to Adam, go up in the upstairs studio, as it was at the time, Sadler's Wells, and just listen to the music and try and think what happens here. You know, it's a incredibly powerful music, one climax after another. You know, it's sort of quite hard to imagine what might be going on. And he sort of like had a lot of time in his hands and sort of came up with various things that then went into the show, and we created this Act 4, which has become very sort of memorable and moving and powerful, but a little bit difficult to explain what exactly happens. It's much more about the audience feeling something through the music and the movement and the action that takes place on stage. But if you try and explain it to someone about a lot of swans in a bedroom with a big bed, and it starts to sound silly. So it's best not talked about. But I think Adam had a lot to do with how that was created.